Good morning, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33, WHPR, and Comcast 20 in Detroit. And you could get us on the internet at www.tv33whpr.com. And we are so happy to be here this Friday morning because I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful show for you today. And first, we're going to talk about employment, and that's something that all of us are interested in because an employed society is a good society, but not everybody in employment is fair. And we're going to talk to Daron Calhoun of the United States Equal Opportunity Commission. Also, we're going on my second half of the show, we're going to have Shahida Mausi-Johnson, and we're going to be talking about a new documentary, a new film that's going to be coming out on Mayor Coleman Young, and how you can be a part of it with your memories of Mayor Young. So stay tuned for that. But first and foremost, I'd like to introduce my first guest, Daron Calhoun. Good morning.
Good morning, Brenda.
Okay, let me make sure I got it right. U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission. U.S. Employment. Equal
Employment Opportunity.
Equal employment.
Right.
Boy, what am I doing this morning? EEOC. Now that's better. That's how I knew it. I never said it before, and I always wondered about that and if it was an effective agency. But let me first talk about you. Now, you grew up here.
I grew up on the west side of Detroit.
West side?
West side. Went to Winship Elementary, Cooley High School. Graduated from Cooley High School.
Cooley.
There you go. And I went to Oakland University and in Rochester, and then I went on to the Army, and then the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
How long have you been with them?
21 years.
Now, let's get the specifics of your job. Let's talk about your job.
Excuse me. I am right now by trade, I'm an investigator. I learned how to be an investigator, how to investigate employment discrimination. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is the only federal agency that investigates employment discrimination on the various employment anti-discrimination laws, which are Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and that's the biggest act that we enforce.
And the civil rights laws include?
The civil rights laws include Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which is 1964, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act of 1967, the Equal Pay Act of 1963, and our newest law, which is the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2009.
Okay, let's start backwards. What is that?
Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act says that an employer cannot treat someone differently on the basis of their genetic makeup. How do you find someone's genetic makeup? Let's do a real quick scenario.
Yeah.
I come to work one morning and I'm looking very haggard. And my supervisor says to me, "Hey, Daron, what's the problem?" "Oh, I had a rough night. My dad was in the hospital. He had a scare." My dad's not in the hospital. He had a scare because, he had chest pains and his dad died.
Yeah, and then they say, well, you're at risk for that.
Exactly.
And they may try and squeeze you out.
They'll squeeze you out. They won't give you the better positions or even give you a promotion because you might not be around for a while. And then there are also other types of disclosures where I have to take physical. And Michigan is the largest manufacturing state. And what's supposed to happen at a physical for a job is that you're supposed to be able to find out if I'm able to do the job. That's it.
Right.
But what happens is some of these employers get a diagnosis and a prognosis of your future, find that you may have a genetic marker for breast cancer or prostate cancer, and in 10 years you might have this disease, and we'll be paying for you in your insurance, so you're just not hireable. So they won't hire you.
And the Americans with Disabilities Act.
It says that you cannot treat anyone differently in the workplace or even in hiring on the basis of a condition that substantially
A
limits,
handicap.
We don't say handicap.
Oh.
It's a disability, and even that's defined as a condition that substantially limits a major life activity.
For example?
Diabetes. Diabetes substantially limits major life activities in the normal blood work or normal eating.
Right. Right.
Cancer obviously is a disability,
Right.
but then there are some disabilities that are hidden, like cognitive disabilities, or
Right.
even depression is considered a disability. So there is no list of disabilities.
What about physical disabilities? That's
Physical
on that
or
too.
physical or mental? That's correct.
Really?
Hidden or not?
Oh, okay. Now, can you give me an example of a case maybe where a person believed, or just an example for my audience?
Absolutely. I investigated a case years ago where there was a large company in this area that said that women, well, not women, it said that if you are on disability leave, any type of disability leave, that you cannot be promoted for 3 to 5 years. Now that particular policy, which was a neutral policy, applied to everyone, but it had an impact on women and persons with disabilities, because as a reasonable accommodation, the law says a person who has a disability and asks for an accommodation should the company has to make every good faith effort to get them an accommodation. So if a person asks for it, then they have to say, we have to make some type of modification to the job.
Okay.
And so
Just a small thing like in the factory, like carpal tunnel.
carpal tunnel could be considered a disability if it substantially limits a major life
Well, if a
activity.
person has to do
Repetitive.
right.
But see, the thing under the Disabilities Act, you have to be able to perform the essential functions of the job.
Right,
So-
but they have a lot of different jobs.
Right. And that's where the employers are not, that's where the employers are learning. That's where the challenges are, is because if the person cannot perform the essential functions of that job, then they're required to make a good faith effort at finding an open and available position in a job that they can perform.
So if a person believes that they have been dismissed or maybe set aside or not being able to be promoted based on
Based on a disability,
a disability,
then they should come to us.
okay.
Now, there are two agencies. We're the federal agency. The Michigan Department of Civil Rights, who are our partners, is also an agency that they can go to. But they have to come. Now, there are jurisdictional times, which is, I'm glad you asked what they should do. They have 300 days to get to us, 10 months from the date of harm. And the date of harm is identified as when the action happened. You actually have 10 months just to get to us in order to protect your rights. Anytime outside of that time, no one can protect your rights.
Okay, so people should come to you right away.
Immediately. I had a woman call me the other day, said, well, I got a few months. No, you don't, because there may be some circumstances that may preclude you from filing, which our actions happened before. Get in as soon as you think that you've been discriminated against. You need to come see us.
If anyone in our audience believes they were discriminated against in their job, you can call in and ask Daron some questions. 313-868-0342, 868-0351, and 868-4336. Now, Daron, say for example, if I'm on the job and I'm doing okay on the job, but I'm trying to get promoted. I know I have, they know I have diabetes or something like that. And I have all the qualifications, I believe, because everything's subjective here.
Absolutely.
I have all the qualifications. I have more qualifications than anybody else, but I have diabetes. Now, if someone else gets the position and you go, a lot of times people will go to the boss or something and say, was there something I did, something?
How was my interview? What did I do
Right,
wrong?
right. And if they can't pinpoint certain things, then, because you get along well with others, have all these other
Everything's
things going,
perfect. Right.
they should call you.
They should come down come down to see us, call us.
Where are you located?
We're at 477 Michigan Avenue, Suite 865 in the Federal Building. We're open between 8 and 4:30. For walk-in, you can just come in 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And then after that, you just call and make an appointment. But if you can also call me. 313-226-4607 is the number right on my desk. So.
And you have some statistics?
Yes. I have plenty of statistics. We're the federal government.
Oh, the feds.
We absolutely believe in statistics. These are statistics for 2012, just for Michigan. We've had a total of 860 charges in Michigan just dealing with race.
Wow,
Just dealing with
860
charges.
charges just dealing with
Just dealing
race,
with race.
racial discrimination.
Race discrimination.
Can you give me some examples, though? I mean,
Well, unfortunately, race discrimination is the largest amount of charges that we get, and it's still running rampant. People are still using racial epithets in the workplace. Hey, N-word, this, hey, N-word. They're still using that in the workplace to a degree that's alarming when you see it, and you think that it's been
and it's
over.
not just black people.
No. It's every race calling someone racial epithets. We have a growing number of Arab Americans being called racial epithets in the workplace. So that's one of the largest. The next one is disability.
Make sure you're still speaking in there.
Is disability discrimination at 814 charges, and those are on the rise because the law changed in 2009.
Did it? In what way?
We had a series of Supreme Court cases, really bad Supreme Court decisions that narrowed the focus on who could be considered as a person with a disability. So Congress, in the one good thing it did back in 2007, 2008, expanded the law so that the coverage is more. So that because at one point before 2009, a person with diabetes was not considered a person with a disability. If they were insulin dependent, once they took the insulin, then they are back to being regular. Their blood's back to being regular. And so the Supreme Court said once you're taking mitigating factors, you're no longer a person with a disability. So if a person had a prosthetic leg and they put the leg on, then they're no longer a person with a disability.
Really?
The law now says, no, it's not. That's not the case. A person with a condition is always a person with a disability.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons for the increase in the charges of discrimination under the ADA is because now people they don't have to fight to be covered under the law. They can just assert, I have a disability, and the employer is required to make a good faith effort at a reasonable
So
accommodation.
how do employers respond to you guys react?
Reluctantly. No, I'm kidding.
No.
They're getting better. I've been doing this for 21 years now, and they're all over the place.
How do you first notify them?
Once a person files a charge, the EEOC has 10 days to get a charge to the company. So as soon as we get it, it's called serving. Now, we're not advocates. We don't speak on behalf of the charging parties. We don't speak on behalf of the company, nor do we speak on behalf of the person filing the charge. We're third-party neutral fact finders.
Okay.
So they come to us, they file a charge, they sign it out, they sign a sworn charge. We swear them into the charge, and we send that immediately to the company, and we give them a few weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, to respond to the charge. Most companies will have their attorneys respond to the charge, or they'll have the human resources respond.
Okay. So you don't use the person's name?
Oh yes.
Oh, you do
it.
use their
I mean,
name.
we can take anonymous charges. We can take third-party charges. If your coworker sees that you're being harassed and she doesn't think that that you have the power to do it, then she can come down to our office and file a charge on your behalf. Our director can file a charge of discrimination on the person's behalf. We can file what's under the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, ADEA. The director of an office can file it. It would be just like a person came to our office. She can actually go down and file a charge.
What about sexual harassment in the workplace?
It's still on the rise, and
It's still on the
I
rise?
don't understand it. It's probably the most insidious thing in the workplace. It just continues to grow. Sex harassment, 686 charges of sex discrimination. 686 in 2012 alone.
Discrimination that can be what?
Discrimination is treating somebody differently. That's all discrimination means. Sex harassment is when a person or a person like a supervisor or a coworker makes unwanted, unwelcome advances towards a person in conduct or comments in the workplace, and that is still absolutely.
So back years ago, women just had to kind of deal with it.
Well, it's funny that you should say that because the charges of sex harassment that are the most coming forward now
Our men.
are men because women are now sexually harassing men.
Jeez.
You'd be surprised, and the reason why is because women are getting into positions of power and leadership, and now they're turning around saying, well, using whatever type of language in the workplace can be considered unwanted, unwelcome sex discrimination.
Wow, that's something. Well,
Turnaround.
yeah, women are bosses. Bosses are bosses.
Bosses are bosses. So, and sex harassment is not about sex. Sex harassment is about power. It's about I have the power to change your life in any type of way or talk to you any kind of way that I want to simply because I have power over you.
So do you confront that person or you confront the business? I mean, not confront. Well,
right.
You know
Well,
what
the charge goes against the company,
Okay.
and there is no individual liability for a supervisor. If we were to file a charge, you cannot file against the supervisor themselves. You have to file against the company.
Okay.
And now we investigate the individual. We investigate.
Now, how does your investigation go, say, for a sexual harassment charge?
Okay. One of the things that, in a nutshell, we send the charge, they send a response. The very next thing that happens is is we have to talk to the charging party. Once they give us once they respond or tell us what happened with the company's side, then we talk to the charging party and say, well, what happened? Well, that didn't happen. This person was standing there. I have witnesses. I have videotape. We've had videotape of sex harassment going on. And then once we do that, then we go on site and we'll go out to the company and say, I want to talk to these people who are here. We try not, we don't talk to witnesses on site because they can be retaliated against, which is another.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So you're giving testimony? Okay, guess what? We're going to give you an opportunity to seek your, we're going to give you a chance to seek your opportunities elsewhere.
Outside of the company.
Right. And so that's retaliation, and that's even worse than the initial
And then you have
discrimination.
somebody else file it.
You have somebody else file a charge. And the best thing to do, when we go around and we talk to employers, we tell them the best thing to do is to just tell us the truth. We can work with the truth. We can remedy the workplace. But if you're not going to do that, if you don't want to do that, if you want to try and hide it and try to hide your hands, we're going to find it because it's not going to stay under. We have 17 investigators that cover the entire state of Michigan, including Northern Ohio. And we have a very vigorous investigative team here. One reason why, because I'm pushing them out.
Wow, that's amazing. So here we go. We have all these cases. Well, you can't do it. How many investigators do you have?
We just have 17 employment investigators, but we have all of the supervisors were former investigators. Our director was an unpaid intern that started in the late 70s, early 80s, and is now the director of our office. So we have people who know the employers here. We have a very good relationship with the employment bar here, and we do a lot of training, a lot of cross-training, but employers are still, they're employers that still think that they can get away with discrimination.
Well, a lot of times people don't say anything because they need that job.
And
Have you
that's
found that to be an issue?
Absolutely, and that's a very real fear. And you have to, that's something that you have to take into consideration before you file a charge, because we can't protect your job. We can protect the fact that you've been discriminated against, and we can find a remedy. Now, there are sometimes people who believe they've been discriminated against, that the evidence is just not there.
Right.
And if it's not, then we have to close the case. But we're not the last stop. We're the first stop along the way of protecting your rights. The next stop after us will be court, will be a federal district court. And a person can, the law says you have to exhaust your administrative remedies prior to instituting an action. And the administrative remedies are us, the EEOC, and the Michigan Department of Civil Rights.
Okay, so, but does it cost for the the plaintiff?
No, to file with us.
No, for the
Oh.
court. I'm talking about court.
Right, I would imagine it would.
Because you have to get an attorney and.
You don't have to get an attorney, but you probably won't win without one.
Okay.
So and the companies will try and bury people, so it's best to have an attorney. And there are some attorneys that take it
They'll
on
try to
contingency.
what?
They'll try to bury you with paperwork, and they try to do that. They do us the same way. They do us the exact same way.
Really?
But we have investigators, and we have teams of investigators that actually weed through all the morass of paperwork and get right down to page 2,962, and this is where the discrimination happened. And that's because we don't need smoking gun, or we don't need beyond reasonable doubt. Our standard of proof is it more likely than not that things occurred because of the person's protected status?
Well, do you all have subpoena power?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Ooh. Yes,
I said, we have a few more minutes with Daron. If you have any questions about employment or believe you've been treated unfairly, you could call us 868-0342, area code 313.
Yes, we absolutely do have subpoena power, and we wield it. We wield it like it's like our sword, because that when Congress gave us not only badges, but then they also gave us subpoena power and litigation authority. That's where employers, and this was in the 70s, that's when employers started taking the EEOC very seriously, because we have a three-pronged mission at the EEOC. It's to educate, investigate, and then litigate if necessary.
Well, do you all ever offer workshops or anything for companies, or who would offer them to let them know what they should and should not do?
We do. And that's one of the things that I do at the EEOC as a program analyst. I'm the outreach coordinator as well. So we do offer paid training. We also offer non-paid training to advocacy groups, and we work closely with NAACP, ADC, and a lot of the advocacy groups in Detroit, and we offer ourselves, especially a youth program. If you have any youth groups that, especially for those young people who are starting to get jobs in the workplace, we'll come out and give free training to them on employment discrimination.
Oh, well, that's
anywhere in Michigan.
You know, it's funny because yesterday I saw on the news how they had women who are pregnant. They were filing against people who touched their stomach.
Oh my goodness, yeah. That could be considered a harassment, but I don't think that would be us, because the employer is not doing anything. I saw that as well.
I know. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. May I have your name?
This is Dr. Up Detroit, also known as urban planner Hellenius Phillips. I just had a question of Daron.
Yes.
And that was, how far back in time can you make a complaint? Or let's put it this way, after occurrence takes place, how much time do you have to actually file your complaint?
That's a great question. You only have 300 days from the date of harm to file a charge. So that's 10 calendar months. Now our investigation will go back as far as we can find the discrimination, but in order to be time jurisdictional, or to meet time jurisdiction, you have to file within 10 months of the date of harm.
Does that answer your question? Oh, well, I hope it did. He's not there. Anyone else with a question, you may call. We still have a few more minutes. So did you have any other statistics?
Absolutely.
Oh, you're full of them.
Right. Let me, but while I have a chance, let's take a look at these.
Okay.
In 2012, we filed across the country 99,412 charges of employment discrimination.
Wow.
In 2011, that was down from 99,947 charges. 33% of race, 30% sex, 10% national origin.
National origin.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone was born in Japan?
Or someone was born in Japan or Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Because we have a large Hispanic population here. You have color discrimination, which is really, you can think of it as the same race discriminating against someone. I think I'm better than them because I'm dark skinned, so I'm only going to hire dark skinned people. That's color discrimination. Like I said earlier, retaliation is 38%. Age discrimination, that means 40 or above. That's 23% of our charges across the country. 26% is our disability. The Equal Pay Act is only 1% of our charges.
That's
and
it?
That's a shame.
That is a shame because
we all know about the glass ceiling,
right.
Equal Pay Day, but we only have 1% of our
what
charges.
is GINA?
GINA is the genetic information.
Oh, okay.
And since that's our newest law, and it's only been in place for 2 years, we don't have as many charges.
We have Theo on the line. Good morning, Theo.
Good morning.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, hi. I was calling to ask about political discrimination. Here in the city of Detroit, you may know that we have the governor who has come down and put the Kevin Orr in, and they are have taken our voting rights away. And as we speak, the DDA, Downtown Development Authority, is proposing that the area, the most lucrative area in the city of Detroit, be turned over to them. And it is a group of private people who take our public tax dollars and redistribute them to their personal friends. And that's definitely discrimination. But I'd like to know if you have anything to do with political discrimination such as that.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
We only cover race, color, religion, national origin, age, sex, disability, or genetic information at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Now, that there are other types of discrimination at the Department of Justice.
And do come out and speak to groups as well. I think
Absolutely. Churches,
Brenda was asking
employment
that
groups.
question.
Absolutely. We'd be glad to.
Did you get his number?
Okay. Well, please, be sure and give the number.
Okay, we'll
I'd
give
like,
it a.
I'd like to arrange that.
We'll give it again, Daron.
It's 313-226-4607. And that's right on my desk. Just let me know that you want us to set up something.
I can call now and leave a message.
You sure can.
Okay.
I might not answer, though.
No, I want to leave a message on the phone. Okay.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times, and before we wrap up, I do want to say there have been times, I say, in a lot of people's career where they thought they were being treated unfairly or maybe even given favors for other favors.
Exactly.
And it's so unfair, but then they say, I have kids at home, I have this, and sometimes they're fearful to report.
And that's there are ways to get around someone having to report and get around their fear. Like I said, we can do third-party charges if we have enough information. We can have we have 5 commissioners in the District of Columbia at our headquarters. If we propose a charge under Title VII, it's called a commissioner's charge. We can file a charge on behalf of employees without using anyone's name.
Oh, wow.
So there are ways. I mean, the law understands that the companies are large. The companies are superpowers in the United States, and they can go after people. But let me mention one thing before.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Mention your one thing because I got to wrap this segment. But would you come back?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because what I'm about to say will probably draw a lot of questions and bring me back. We're just like every other federal agency. We have to do more with less. And so what we've done at the EEOC is we've identified 6 target areas for strategic enforcement. So we're actually pulling apart some charges like vulnerable workers, systemic charges in hiring, and there are a couple other, and they're very detailed. But there are very specific charges that the EEOC has formed teams within each office to not only give outreach to, but to find the discrimination and root those things out. And these are going to be our larger charges.
Wow, we have to get into that next time.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much. This has been eye-opening. Were you a part of the shutdown, Governor?
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh, gosh.
16 days. It's going to be my book.
Oh, I know. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank Daron, and we will be back in a moment with Shahida Mausi-Johnson. Good morning again, and welcome once again to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33, WHPR, Comcast 20 in Detroit. And it's with my pleasure to introduce to you Mrs. Shahida Mausi-Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. I am just honored. I'm so honored because we've known each other a long time and everything, but I never got a chance to sit down and talk to you like this. And there's so much because were you raised here?
Yes.
I know you've been here a long time. I mean, I don't want to say long time.
Long time. Yes, actually, my family came to Detroit in 1918. That was my great-grandmother. So our family has been here. We're looking at 100 years coming up.
That is such a blessing.
It is. It is.
And your mother was so wonderful. I got to meet her one time, Joyce Garrett.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful woman. And you two resemble, I always said you two resembled a lot.
Thank you. I'm flattered.
Oh, really? She's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I am so happy to have you here. And you said there was a Harvest Fest last night?
Yes. My company, The Right Productions, we manage and operate
Shane
Park on behalf of the city of Detroit. And last night, we had Harvest Fest at Shane Park. So there were somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 children and families that came to Shane Park last night in that rain.
In the rain. It was a
rain.
mess last night.
But that's what made it great because, Shane has the huge tent over the seats. And so we set up trick-or-treating stations and other things all up under the tent. So the children were outside running around, but they didn't get wet.
Oh, that was wonderful,
It was
wonderful.
Great. It was great. And the volunteers that came out, the companies that contributed to make it happen, it was all free to everybody. So it was just great.
Well, you're involved in a project, and I want my listeners and viewers to know about this very, very significant project.
Thank you. I had the honor of being an appointee of Mayor Coleman Young. And we are now in the 40th anniversary year of his first election to office. So,
I will always remember that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my daughter was 2 months old when I took her to his victory party.
Mm-hmm.
I had her in arms, and she just turned 40.
Yeah.
Time flew.
Yes, it has. It has. But this is an important part of our history in this city.
Very.
We are now looking at young people who are coming up who really don't know anything about Mayor Young, nothing about Coleman Young, except the disparaging remarks, the offhand remarks that are made in columns and television bits. And so I thought it was important, and other appointees agree with me that it is important, that we capture and collect the history about Mayor Young, that we are able then to transmit that to our children and to safeguard the perspective of what actually happened in that time. So we're working on a documentary about Mayor Coleman Young. And we're just pleased to be able to invite people who have those personal memories about Mayor Young to come and share those with us, because he touched a lot of people in this town.
A lot of people. Now, can these be one-on-one memories, or
how are we going to do this?
Yes.
Well, we've begun the process, and it is not a closed-in process. We are collecting some one-on-one interviews, particularly with some of our seniors, because we want to make sure that we collect their recollections and their perspectives while they are with us. I would not want to see some of our history, and we've lost some people who've not been able to be recorded on the subject. So we've done some one-on-one interviews, but on Friday, next Friday, November the 8th, at the Museum of African American History, we're inviting people to come and share their personal memories with us, and we will film them. We will potentially include them in the documentary. So at the Museum of African American History, bring your memories. And some of us have seniors in our families or in our neighborhoods, our churches, that we know have special memories, that So we may need to go get those people and bring them to the museum so that we can record them. And we're asking people to do that. You can learn more about what we're doing by going online at iremembercoleman.com. You can get information about the event, but it's going to be at the Museum of African American History from 1 until 4 next Friday, and then again from 6 until 9 for those people who are still in the workplace and can't get off during the day.
Right, that is just wonderful. Now, I've seen on Facebook a lot of people have posted pictures of themselves and Mayor Young and everything. Those memories are just so fabulous. And everybody has a story. My mother has a story, even though she never met Coleman Young. He's from Tuscaloosa. He was, and so was my dad. And if you close your eyes and listen to Coleman Young's voice and listen to my father, they sound the same. She always used to say, I could swear they're brothers because they cuss the same. Because he could really.
He was very articulate.
Very articulate. And I thought he was very brave. He was not a cowardly politician at all. And I always remember him up in front of one of those committees saying, do I look like a stool pigeon?
Yeah, he went before the Un-American Activities Commission. He
Yes.
was called before them. He was very active in the union organizing in this town. But politically, he was brilliant.
Yes.
And he was brilliant in so many ways. He was a man who was not a college graduate, but he read voraciously. He could go toe-to-toe, fact to fact, with people with extended degrees. He was a brilliant man, and he brought those skills and those abilities to the service of us in this town.
I remember someone who used to spar with him. It was Bill Bonds.
Yes.
And
I want an interview with Bill Bonds.
Yes.
I'm just saying, so if you ask for it,
yes,
I want an
yes.
interview with Bill
Put
Bonds.
that out there. You have to have that interview.
Right.
Because I remember one night watching Channel 7 and Bill Bonds challenged him to a fight or something like
Yes.
that. I said, what is this?
Yes, I remember that. It was silly.
And if you've ever met Bill Bonds thought he knew everything.
Well,
And so
they had a worthy adversary that night.
Worthy.
But I remember things like, at the time I was the director of the Arts Council for the city
Right.
of Detroit. And a young man...
That was a wonderful thing.
Thank you. We were honored and pleased to be able to do that work. It was very, very gratifying. But I remember a young family came to me, and a young man had been given an opportunity to go to Interlochen to study. But he was a student. I think he was at Southeastern, but he didn't have his own horn. And we didn't have a fund in the city to buy a horn for a child.
Right.
So I called the mayor and I said, I need a horn for this child. So Coleman bought his horn out of his pocket. Now, I don't know who that young man is or how the
Well,
the
that
study
would be a
came out,
wonderful story.
but I remember he said, okay, and he just wrote the check, and that young man got a horn to go to Interlochen with.
Well, I told you that my son got the opportunity when University of Detroit was recruiting him. Part of the recruitment was not only a tour of the Fox Theater, just stuff with the Illegals, some Tiger paraphernalia. It was a chance to sit down one-on-one in Coleman Young's apartment. Coleman had on his smoking jacket or his robe and everything. And, Mayor Young, I'm sorry, had that on. And he and my son just sat down and it was just the two of them. And my son has very good memories about that conversation.
He listened to young people. I was young, and
I know.
I wasn't always as guarded as
Subdued.
one. Right. I was rather outspoken on occasion. But he listened, and he heard, and he analyzed, and he helped you to analyze. And he gave us, as appointees, the opportunity to really dig in and do our jobs. We worked hard. We not only worked the hours that were paid for, but far beyond them, as most civil servants do,
Right.
truthfully.
Right.
But he gave us the opportunity to make our case to him, and it was a joy to work for somebody who you could have that level of respect for. This is what I believe to be the best interest from the perspective of what you've charged me to be responsible for. And if you give me your backing, I can accomplish X. And he did that. And it was just I'm so grateful
Well,
for
and he
having had
didn't
that opportunity.
micromanage.
No, he did not.
And that's very, very important. What would you say were his 3 strongest suits?
The fact that he read so much, that he was we use the word visionary a lot, but truthfully, much of what is now happening in this city is what Mayor Young proposed then. The development of Detroit going from bridge to bridge is happening, from the Ambassador Bridge to the Belle Isle Bridge, the whole Riverwalk piece, going up the main corridors. These are things that he proposed. And another thing that people consistently are told, that he was a racist. That is absolutely not true. Mayor Young stood on the position that, and this was not an electoral campaign piece, but his position was that the appointees in his administration would be 50-50, 50% black, 50% white, 50% female, 50% male. And that happened across the board, department to department. If the director was a man, the deputy director was female. If the director was female, the deputy director was male. And the races, and so that culturally in this town,
A lot of people didn't know that.
a lot of people didn't know that and don't recognize how that was a standard
And it was ahead of its time.
way ahead of its time. So, no, he wasn't a racist. He allowed people to bring their best sets of skills to bear on behalf of our town.
And could you tell us another strong suit that you thought, okay, he read a lot, he was into equal opportunity?
Well, you know, there are things that you can
He
say
had
about...
so many gifts.
He did.
He did.
He did. But, you know, we all have skills, right?
Yes.
And some of them are it depends on how you look at them, whether they're good skills or bad skills, you know. He was an absolute workaholic. Oh, my God. He was always the mayor. There was no time off, really, for him. He was dedicated to this city to an extent that was probably to the detriment of him personally, in his personal life, but also to a degree to the detriment of our community, because so many of us looked at him as like, he's in office, he's got this. Mayor Young's got it, we don't have to worry about it, we can go on about our business. And we did, and that did not serve our community well.
Right, absolutely.
On the other hand, it was a definite skill of his to be that focused, that committed to accomplishing what he saw as the vision that needed to be accomplished. You know, Detroit almost went into receivership before. Detroit almost went bankrupt before. The state almost took over the city of Detroit before, when Mayor Young was in office, and he absolutely prevented that from happening. He did it against all odds. He made things happen. He brought in experts to create a plan whose skill sets and references were impeccable. He got the state at the last possible moment to allow us to vote ourselves a tax increase, and then within 2 or 3 weeks of that time, convinced the citizens of the city of Detroit to stand up and pay the additional tax so that we would not lose the sovereignty of our city.
That was strength.
That was strength.
That was so much strength and wisdom. And like you said, he was so smart.
Yes.
He was so smart. And like, it seemed like he always was out.
He was always regular.
Always, yes, yes.
Yeah.
He was the people's
He was
mayor.
the people's man, and those are the memories that we want. I remember Coleman. Lots of us can say that. People at Red's on Oakland Avenue can remember. I remember Coleman. People from the barbershops and from the barbecue places.
I always wondered, you remember Coleman Young Barbecue?
Young Barbecue.
Oh,
Young's
okay.
Barbecue.
I don't know why we thought it was
Yeah,
Coleman
it wasn't.
Young.
No, that wasn't.
It was funny because one night after Richard Pryor he'd come to the Masonic Temple. We all went over to Young's Barbecue. And I don't know why. Did they have a picture of him painted up there or something? It was something they had that made us think that Coleman Young had something to do
I think
with
they
this
call it
place.
effective marketing.
Effective. I think they had a picture of him on the window. I can't remember. If anybody remembers, call in, please. But there was something, and the festival started on the riverfront and all
Yes.
of that during his tenure, didn't it?
The ethnic festivals definitely started under Coleman Young.
Yeah, those were wonderful. And then we had Montreux.
The Montreux Jazz Festival, that was
Didn't
under
you
that.
have something to do with that?
Well, we had a little bit to do with that. We helped to fund it on occasion. But he also did, he played Santa Claus.
Really?
He played Santa Claus and arrived at a Christmas party where children were given gifts and whatnot. He arrived at the Christmas party in a helicopter.
In a helicopter?
In a helicopter. And the kids were outdone.
I know they went nuts.
Now, if you can picture Coleman Young in his voice saying "ho ho
Ho,
ho,",
ho, ho, yeah.
it was funny. It
Oh,
was great.
he was so hilarious. They had this little book. I have that book, in fact. Somebody borrowed it from me. I had to buy it again. No, I did, of his little quips and things he would say. He was hilarious.
He was. He was.
He was hilarious, but like you said, it seemed to be down to earth. He seemed to be approachable, and that's very important too with a leader.
Yes.
A leader needs to be approachable.
Well, people believed that he had our best interest at heart, and they would listen to him and respond. And that was an effective part of his administration and that time in Detroit.
What do you think is the difference between Young and the politicians who are running today?
Well, I think that that was a special time. That was a special era. That was a person who was forged, how diamonds are forged under pressure. Right. And that happened in that time and in that place. But he also accomplished some things that people just don't. He helped to make things happen, not only in Detroit, but in this country, and was recognized internationally. Detroit, as you know, was a source for political. It was a political beacon in this country and in the world. I remember when the president of Grenada, came to Detroit before the United States invaded Grenada. Remember, the United States invaded Grenada.
Yes, I remember Reagan.
Right. Well, he came to Detroit to ask for support. He came to Detroit to be able to make his case to our mayor, to our city council, to help bring awareness of what was happening to his people, to us, and for our support. That didn't happen. That doesn't happen. That, yes, we're a city, but we were a beacon of political freedom for people.
And hope.
And hope.
Amazing, amazing. I think we have a call on the other line because we're getting ready to go off in a few moments. Good morning, caller. Good morning. Oh, please call right back, please.
I want to say also, we had the first attorneys in the United States who were of color, who were able to issue bonds, a bond attorney. That didn't exist before Coleman Young worked with the Lewis and Young firm to create them and enable them to have the skill sets and the opportunity to become bond attorneys. He broke ground in opening fields.
Pioneer. He was a pioneer also. I mean, he was so much.
Yeah.
Let's tell the audience once again where they should go next week, Friday.
If you have a story about I Remember Coleman, whether you do or your mother, your grandmother, your neighbor, please come to the Museum of African American History next Friday at between 1 and 4 o'clock or between 6 and 9 o'clock. Bring us those special moments that meant something to you and to your family. Share those. Let us record them, and let us consider placing them in a documentary that we are working on to remember the legacy, the true legacy of Mayor Coleman Young.
And that's November 8th.
November 8th.
Friday, November 8th. And what is the projected date for this to be completed?
You know, film takes a long time. You
Oh,
know
please,
that.
I just finished one, yes.
So we're starting. We've begun the process. I don't have an end date yet, but we will be doing hopefully a screening of some of the sizzle reels from this piece very soon. But this is the 40th anniversary, and I did not want this year to pass without the people having the opportunity to recognize it and to celebrate it. This is a historic election next week in the city of Detroit, but this is a historic year in our city.
Absolutely.
And I'm asking people to come help.
Please be a part of this. This is, and it's going to go down through the ages.
Yeah.
It's here. Our young people have to know about this. He was such a role model in so many ways. And Shahida, I'd like to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
My producer has this information in case you want to know it, or call us this afternoon during Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. Remember, we'll be on at 1 o'clock. And tears almost come to my eyes when I think about him and being able to vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're
Was
talking
quite
about
a night.
black presidents. It was hard to get a black mayor. I mean, just wonderful, fantastic. And thank you for being a part of that administration.
It was my honor, truthfully. I remember Coleman.com.
IRememberColeman.com. Just check it out.
Thank
And
you.
good luck on this. I want I want to be on the outskirts looking at that documentary the second it comes out.
Thank you.
Everybody join me this afternoon for Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. It's going to be an excellent, excellent show.